Microphone check here. It's all looking pretty good. Let me just mute YouTube real quick, as always. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Happy New Year, everyone. It is another year gone by, and hopefully everybody had a decent year. I know for me personally, wasn't my best, that's for sure. It was pretty disappointing, to be honest. But that is the nature of investing. For me, as a trend-following trader, basically, using volatility metrics as my input variables. It's just kind of one of those years where there was too much whipsaw, high volatility, yet the markets are still marching higher. It just kind of wasn't my year. But I do have a plan, of course, to get through next year. So hopefully all of you out there, you either had a great year investing, or you're like me, you have a plan next year to fix any mistakes that were made and have a really good one next year. So looking forward to that getting started. Now, just a quick couple of notes here about the stream. I am in Panama City right now. It is extremely hot, so you might actually hear some hissing in the background. Apologies, the air conditioning is on full blast right now. This microphone tends to be decent filtering stuff out, but if you hear that, apologies. I'm not going to sit here in a hotel room with no air conditioning. And the second thing is we got real unlucky. It's a super sunny day out, so it's probably a little bit blasted out. Working with these backlit settings, it's actually pretty difficult. So it is what it is, but it might come and go. If it goes behind some clouds, setting might change, but it's too good of a view to give up. I do spend probably about 10 hours a day in front of my computer, so I do like my views. And this is kind of one that would be a shame to waste. So I faced this way rather than the other way that I usually do my work, staring out the window. But today, thank you for joining me. This is episode 31, I believe. Today we're going to talk about one thing that is trading related specifically, and then one that a lot of people, I think, when they're trying to build their wealth and their long-term retirement accounts, something that they seem to overlook, I think, for a majority of people out there, and that is the concept of minimalism. Obviously, it is not directly related to investing, but one of the very key factors in building a very successful long-term retirement account is the amount of money you can save and keep stuffing into your account every month, because of course that also compounds at your rate of return. So it's obviously a function of time, how much you save, living below your means, and then getting a good rate of return. I focus typically on the last part about getting people the good rate of return, but let's not overlook how important it is for people to actually save money. And minimalism, as I'm going to get into today, it might be something that a few of you want to look into heading into next year. So I just get a million questions about it, emails, people in live streams. I'm no guru, I'm no minimalist expert or anything, but sometimes the best way to help people is just to give examples. And what better way to give examples than to give an example of a person who actually lives that life. So I am a minimalist, have been for a while, and I will share some thoughts on that. So without further ado, Happy New Year, everyone, and let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really do appreciate the support. So my name's Brent Osachoff, I'm a Canadian, and I'm a former professional golfer, so you will hear the odd golf analogy slipped in there from time to time. I run, I love movies, diehard UFC fan, and I do love to travel, so you'll see this background change throughout the year. So just give me 1 minute here to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you do feel like you need a little more structure in your investing, I do also manage a private investing community with members from over 65 countries around the world. And it's all centered around both of our diversified portfolios. You can choose the one that best suits your personal level of risk tolerance. There's a daily email sent out every morning with a ton of very useful volatility metrics at the top, which you can learn more about each one of them and start applying them to your own trading. There's a daily article or video where I break down some of the most requested topics from members. And then most importantly, of course, in every email, every day, I state exactly what position each of my strategies will be in, along with all the allocation sizing and risk management that goes with them. I've made it easy to follow so you can get the same consistent performance the VTS community has enjoyed for over 9 years now. No obligation, but if this is something you may be interested in, go to volatilitytradingstrategies.com, click the subscribe tab, and the monthly subscription does come with a free 2-week trial so you can check it all out before committing. Thanks again for supporting the YouTube channel and spending a little bit of time with me here today. So let's get on with the show. Okay, so I am going to try to rip through these two topics in a reasonable time frame. I know I always say that in every single live stream, but I do want to leave room for the Q&A. And I remember when I was in Panama last time, if people remember, I did one entirely off-topic live stream where every business question, every volatility or trading question, we just skipped all of them and we just got right to the personal questions. It was fun. I was drinking some wine. I answered some embarrassing things. So I am in Panama. I'm not going to limit it to no business questions today. In the Q&A, you can ask whatever you want. But I will. I don't have any wine. I'm still on the coffee right now. But I will entertain personal questions, of course, as well. So don't ask for my banking codes or my passwords or anything. But pretty much my life's an open book. You can ask me anything you want. I have nothing to hide. So, all right. So a few weeks ago, actually about almost a month ago now, December. Let me do the screen share here. December 3rd of, I guess just 3.5 weeks ago, we did a live stream. This is December 3rd right here. This is the VIX index. And when I was doing the live stream, it actually worked out really well. The VIX was over 30. And we did a live stream talking about how to fade the VIX, the best option strategies to be fading the VIX. It looked like this. So it was Fade VIX Spikes, 3 Best, 3 Worst, episode 29. You can go check that one out. It was pretty popular. I had a ton of follow-up emails. I'm still actually paying the price for that one. I've got an email inbox that is a complete nightmare still. But basically, we went through some of what I think are the best ways to fade the VIX and then the worst ways to fade the VIX. So I thought now that we did get that big vol crush that everybody was expecting, we can actually go back and review all of those trades, and we can basically do inventory on the ones that were good and the ones that weren't. So the 3 that I highlighted that were the worst, number 1, of course, selling short call options. So if the VIX is at 30 or 35, selling a $40 or 40 point call option on the VIX index. Clearly the reason this doesn't work, hopefully people have checked out my streams, you know how I don't like these. But I do want to again reiterate, as I do every time we talk about why I don't like selling naked out-of-the-money options on anything volatility related, very often people confuse that with me saying that you won't make money doing it. That is not my overall point. People misunderstand that all the time. I'm not necessarily saying that if you weren't really good at it, you couldn't turn it into a profit. I'm not saying that. And if somebody wants to say, hey, I've been doing it for 2 years and I've made money, that's great. That's not actually my point. My point is, like it says here, there's several problems. When you sell an out-of-the-money call, you have to reduce the allocation to such a low level because, of course, we know at some point there's going to be some very bad days. So you have to reduce your allocation. You have to hedge the position because, again, it can get out of control very quickly. Oftentimes, people, for some reason, think that the VIX has a ceiling price. It does not. The VIX can go to whatever it goes. Remember the old VXO in 1987, it went to 172 intraday. So there's nothing saying your 40 strike VIX call couldn't a day later go up to 150. It's happened before. Why would we assume that that can't happen again? And then the third thing is, selling call options is one of the most capital intensive trades you can ever do. I've got one here, you can just see it. One single strike, one single contract, $1,300 for one contract. That's how much it costs. It's extremely capital intensive to be doing this. So when you combine all of these 3 things, what you end up with is a trade that's just way more inefficient than all of the other ways that you could be doing this. So I'm not even going to review that trade. Obviously, it would have made the profit because the VIX was at 35 and now it's at 20, so a short call would have worked. But these are the reasons why people just shouldn't do that. It's not that you will for sure not make money. Of course you can make money. You can do that with any strategy. We're talking about more money. We're talking about efficiency. We're trying to be effective traders. When you add in it all together, it is just super inefficient. It's capital intensive. You have to reduce it to such a small quantity. It doesn't really matter anyway. The second bad way to do it, and this is the interesting one I think for today, is the long put option. This is very tempting for people. For some reason, the VIX spikes. People think, you know what, the best thing to do, it's at 35. I'm going to buy a long put option. In that live stream, I went over in much more detail than I will now, but this is it. I locked the pricing. This was the exact trade from that day on December 3rd. Now, it also did end up making money. I'll talk about why in a second. But the reason that this is not a very good trade, not an efficient trade, doesn't mean it can't make money, but again, it's not the most efficient way to make money. I don't care if it's net positive. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be the most net positive in the most efficient way possible. The reason is because this is a long vega trade. Long put options are long volatility. So when you have a VIX of 35 and a VVIX of 150, like it was when this trade was technically quasi-opened right here, you've got a trade that you are walking into a massive vega headwind right from the start. And you're going to end up with a trade that if you get an insanely fast vol crush, it can still make money. And that's, of course, what we see here. Where's the VIX index? We did, in fact, get a pretty epic vol crush. Now, it wasn't doing overly well early on. I can actually show you that real quick on just a little tangent. So this is Thinkorswim. This is called Think Back. We can go to December 3rd, and I can just type in that 20 put, and you can actually see what happened. So what did I pay for that contract that day? 90 cents. We can go into the Think Back, and we can just put in 90 cents, and hopefully my internet is fast enough to show this. Come on, Think Back. Oh, no. Live streams. There's always problems. Anyway, it would have been right here. No, that's not even it. That's why. So here's the trade, and it made a little bit of money, but you can see even 6 days in with massive vol crush, it started at over 30, something like 33, and it went down to 20 pretty quickly, and that trade was still only up $30. That's because you need an insanely fast vol crush for it to even make a profit. If it just slowly bled down like it typically would, this trade would be losing money. Now, as it happened, it really ramped up in the last week or so, and this is a profitable trade, you could say, but you can see on expiration, it's still going to lose money. So I will have to close this trade if it was open. Whereas some of the other good trades, you can actually let them sit there for a while. So the long put, it's not necessarily that it can't make money. It's just a very inefficient way to trade because you're buying into a massive volatility headwind. And you're going to get slapped when you get what you want. You want volatility to go down. You want the VIX to go to 20. When that happens, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So the third trade that isn't very good, and this is, again, interesting to separate it from 3.5 weeks, is the long put calendar. This is another trade that a lot of people really like. Now, I actually have a screenshot right here saved. Let me make sure I'm on screen share. I don't want to be everybody staring at my face while I'm talking here. That picture is what it looked like on December 3rd. You can see the strikes were as wide as 14 to 27.5. And what I said on that day, the reason the put calendar tricks a lot of people is because it looks so good from the start. You set this thing up and you think, wow, the VIX can be anywhere from 14 to 27 a month from now, and I'm going to make that massive profit. And what I said in that live stream is what ends up happening with long put calendars, they are also long vega trades. So as volatility declines, you're going to be walking into that headwind and you're actually not going to get the profit that you're expecting to get. It's actually going to decline quite rapidly. And the second thing that's going to happen is those wide wings, because volatility is being depressed, they're going to come in a lot. And your beautiful 14 to 27 profit range is going to start to look pretty bad if that vol crush comes in. So let's take a look at what that trade looks like right now. Remember, I locked these prices. This is exactly what it looked like on that day. Here's the 14. Hopefully you can see my cursor there. Here's the 27. Well, it's not so good anymore, is it? This thing dropped significantly because there was vol crush. So now this trade can only make a maximum of $90. If I wait another, 19th of January, if I wait another 20 days, this might make $90. But you can see the pink line, It's actually down $62 right now. I got exactly what I wanted. The VIX went from 32 to 20, but I'm still I'm losing money. I'm down $62. That's what happens when you buy into long Vega trades. They're very tempting on day one, but they can start to look pretty awful as that volatility starts to come in. So what I said was, we actually kind of want to do the more efficient trades, the ones that won't get you into trouble. These are not things that everybody really experiments with, but these are actually the ones that I recommended. The first one was a long put vertical. Short call vertical is actually the exact same thing. So again, here's the long put vertical that was opened on that day. You can see how much better this trade is than the long put option. This was the long put. While it is profitable, like I said, that is because we've seen a pretty significant slide. But the vertical is even better. And I could, if I wanted, wait, and this is already in max profit range. The put option will actually end up losing money if the VIX stays where it is for another 2 weeks. This trade is already in the max profit range. So the reason that this trade is so much better is because I'm using both a short strike and a long strike. So when you're buying into something, when the VIX is 35 and the VVIX, which is the vol, when that's at 150, you really want to make sure you're structuring your options so you're participating in both long and short strikes so that you're not going to get slapped in the face with that Vega headwind. This trade was very efficient, and it was just smooth sailing the entire way, and it makes its profit. Side note, short call verticals are literally identical. If you use the same strikes, they are the same trade. There's a lot of people who think, well, one of them's short vol, one of them's long vol. They're really not. They're both using the exact same short, long, same strikes. Everything is literally identical. These are mathematical mirrors of one another. The only reason people think that they're not is because oftentimes they're using an out-of-the-money call vertical and an out-of-the-money long put vertical, and they're thinking, well, yeah, clearly one of them's short and one of them's long. If you structure them with the same strikes, it's a mirror of one another. But that's a very good trade. I really like them. And unlike the short naked call option, which is extremely capital intensive, long verticals or short call verticals, these are very efficient from a capital perspective. You could open 7 or 8 of these or even 10 of these for every one strike of a naked call. So again, it's about efficiency. It's not about what could or couldn't make a net positive profit. They both can. One of them is clearly far superior, and it's this one. The second trade is the short iron condor. This is another thing that, of course, a lot of people know what iron condors are, but very rarely think about iron condors on the VIX. I actually really like iron condors on the VIX. Now, you can see what this trade, it's not actually super profitable right now, but this trade is actually looking really good. If this was a live trade that I had open, and, side note, I opened these trades live on that live stream. I have this trade open. This is looking pretty good. I mean, remember the VIX options market, it settles to the front month VIX future. So all we're really looking for is that front month VIX future to be anything above 1720. Really good chance this trade over the next few weeks is just going to start collecting more and more money every day. It is a positive theta trade. I'm going to get a little bit of profit every single day. The price just kind of hovers around this range. So while it didn't make money nearly as fast as the long put vertical did, it's actually sitting in a really good position to profit as well. And the thing about an iron condor, unlike the calendar, these strikes will always remain the same. So you're never going to wake up, 3 weeks later and have this be compressed into a tiny little profit range. This will always be from 17 to 27.5. It's an iron condor. It's basically a set defined risk trade. Iron condors and calendars can oftentimes be used interchangeably if volatility is reasonably low. But if volatility is high, like if the VIX is 35, you definitely want to default to the iron condor and skip those calendars altogether. The last trade, one of my personal favorites, butterflies. Don't know why they're so overlooked. The butterfly itself is very similar to a condor or a calendar, but I just personally like working with butterflies because you can structure them very directionally by breaking one of the wings. And they also behave very well going into expiration. So this is why I also think this trade, even though it's it's only up about $30 more than the put option was, or it's actually pretty close, this is far superior. This thing could be left alone and it could make a nice profit, but it's also going to behave far better if the price starts to bleed the other way. If I did actually have this long put option on and we just had 1 or 2 days where it bleeds this way, my profit's going to be all gone, right? And then I'm going to be in max loss range potentially. Butterflies behave very well, especially into the last week or two of expiration. And of course, you can break the wings to favor either side. So this trade is also looking very good. And again, this is what it would look like today if it was opened on December 3rd when the VIX was, I think it was 33 or something like that. But those are my go-to top 3. Notice all 3 of these are either neutral or short Vega. None of these are walking into a volatility headwind. They're also using both long and short strikes in their construction, whereas these 3, not so much. You're actually taking a very directional exposure on some of these. You've got a long Vega here, a long Vega here, and short calls is just a no, just a flat out no for all the reasons. It's just very inefficient. So those are the trades. And now, as I showed, the Iron Condor, where's my Iron Condor? It was a 1915, 2630. I have this Condor open and it's looking really good. This is a trade that I'm very confident that it's going to start to look really good in a couple weeks. Typically what I will do with Condors is I'll use a 50% stop loss stop gain, which would mean 50% either direction of the premium that I brought in for the trade. So let's just say, for example, I brought in $1 for this trade. If it reaches 50 cents, that's my stop gain. I'm going to take my profit off the table. Remember, it's a short Vega trade. So if it goes from $1 to 50 cents, that's my money. If it goes up 50% from $1 to $1.50, that's my stop loss. Going to have to get out of the trade, take my lumps, and take my capital elsewhere. So this isn't yet at the 50%. I would definitely leave this one open. But my vertical, I left it open just so we could do this live stream update. But I also typically do 50% stop loss, stop gain on my verticals. I would have actually closed this trade within about 5 days of opening it when it reached 50% profit. I just wanted to keep it open for the live stream. So actually what I would do, and I suppose what I can do, is just get rid of that vertical. So where's my, that's not the right button. Hitting all these buttons. I can just get rid of this trade. So sell the vertical, the 25.20, and mid-price 420, natural 410. I would probably just tip 420, but let's just go through the whole thing where I tell people, try to get a little bit better. We're not going to try to nickel and dime this. I'm not going to get it. But what I would typically do is I would wait a few seconds. I can see that it's at 422. I'm not going to get the 425, and I don't want to sit on a live stream. But I'd wait 30 seconds, and then you just drop it down. And at some point, the market's going to give me the trade. So I did get the mid-price at 420, and I'm happy with that trade. But that's the thing, that if you set up the right structure from the beginning, right? The VIX is at 33. Let's say the next time it goes to 33. All 6 of those trades and the other half dozen or dozen that you can think of, every single one of them can make money. And if you're a really good trader and you understand how they work, yes, even the naked short call option person who for whatever reason is out there somewhere, all of them can be made to make a profit. But we're investors. We're not worried about a profit. We're worried about the most profit. We're not worried about trades that might work. We're worried about trades that are the most efficient. So when somebody tells you, and I will, if you come back to my streams, you'll hear me say this another 1,000 times, I'm sure. Don't sell naked, undefined options on volatility ETPs or the VIX or do anything in the VIX futures for those 3 reasons. It can make money, but you need to reduce your allocation, which costs you profit. You need to hedge it, which costs you profit. And it is the most capital intensive trade that you can take, whereas you could just turn around and buy 7 or 8 butterflies and you've got just a way better trade from the start. So next time the VIX spikes, fortunately that live stream, we timed it really well and it was 33 or something when I did it. But the next time it happens, which it will, the VIX will spike probably next year at some point. We're going to see 33, maybe a couple times. You'll know, okay, efficient trades. Definitely try to get both a short and a long. Think verticals, iron condors, butterflies. Then if you do like the vertical, you can pick either one, short or long, doesn't matter. They're both the same thing. Those, probably 50% stop, get your money quick and get out. And they do make money quite quickly, much faster than that put option will. Iron condors, just know ahead of time, as I showed here, you will probably have to wait a little bit longer to realize your profit with those trades. I believe that trade had about, I don't know, what did it have, 50 days to expiration? The iron condor, typically you're looking at leaving them open until about 2 weeks before expiration. That's, I would say, ballpark average. That's when you're going to see that 50% stop gain actually come in. So just know that you're going to have a little longer time horizon with that one. And then the butterflies, of course, are awesome. I would definitely recommend people get into those. And remember, you can break either wing. So if you thought that it would go down, but not very fast, you could break the other wing. If you thought it's going to go down epically quick, you can break the opposite wing. And you can move your risk from the side you don't think is very risky over to the side that you do, or vice versa. Move your risk to the side where you think it might actually end up. Make sure that that's the smaller loss side. And the bigger side is where you, on balance of probability, think that it's probably not going to go there, right? So those are our Fade the VIX trades. I'll try to nail it next time as well, because I think those are kind of fun. But next time around, I'm going to use VXX and UVXY and actually try to, it's more or less the same thing. I mean, basically all insurance products behave the same way. But it might be interesting to do VXX and UVXY for people, because I know a lot of you are vol ETP traders. I am. A lot of what I do is that. I do trade the VIX directly, quite often actually. But to be honest, I have a video coming out. It's the VIX option strategy that I employ is actually my longest running official strategy that I have. I started it back in 2010, and I basically launched it with third-party people following it very early 2011. So it is actually my longest running strategy. I love trading the VIX directly. But again, as I showed, efficiency varies wildly with which strategies you choose. You know, you can maybe squeeze out some profit being the short, naked short person, maybe. Probably in 5 years, you'll think, oh, well, it only took 1 day and I lost it all. But you can maybe squeeze out a profit. But if you do butterflies, calendars, straddles, iron condors, then you're looking at something that can really be quite consistent. So we'll revisit this in a few weeks. It should be fun. Well, not a few weeks. Hopefully the VIX doesn't spike in a few weeks. Okay. Minimalism. This is a topic, like I said, I don't want to act like I'm some minimalist guru or anything, but it is a topic that I feel a lot of us out there, whether you acknowledge it directly or not, we all do kind of know that there's a problem in this world. We all do know that, probably amplified by social media, but we're all feeling like, whether you participate or not, this is a very materialistic and consumer-based economy. And really, that's how it's set up from the start, especially from the government's perspective. That is the goal. I mean, that's just the perfect citizen. If you are out there working really hard, you're working your 8-10-hour days, you're paying really high taxes, government's going to love you for that. You're going to pay, the harder you work, the more you make, the more you're going to give to them. That's awesome. And then your after-tax money that you manage to save, well, they would love it if you'd just go out and spend all that too on some useless garbage. So that is the actual perfect citizen. All any of us can do, because we can't move that boat. It's like one of these giant shipping boats. It takes forever to turn on those things. All we can do is look at our individual lives and decide, are we going to participate in that or are we not? No amount of us voting is going to change this ship from going to where it's going. No amount of protest or complaining is going to do anything to shift society in a different direction. All we can do is just make the personal decision. Do I really need this in my life? Do I really need to be that, good boy citizen that works hard, pays 40, 50% taxes, and then spends 80% of the rest of it on useless stuff? Probably not. But I'm not making your decision for you. If you like your stuff and you like your materialism and consumerism, you do you, of course. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching here, but I want to share a little bit of my experience. Like I said, as a person who has been doing this for quite a while, and I can say, honestly, no reason I would ever look back. I don't regret. I never wake up and think, man, I wish I had more stuff. So this all started basically with this tweet. Sent this out, I think, 7 days ago. I said the minimalist lifestyle, very liberating. This is a picture of all the stuff I own. Now, back in Taiwan, I think I have a business suit. There might be a pair of golf shorts. I think I have an orange pair of golf shorts in Taiwan, something like that. So there might be like a little quarter bag or something of stuff that I left behind. But basically, this is everything I own in this world. Golf clubs, workout clothes, regular clothes, and my entire YouTube studio is in this bigger bag. And then, of course, my computer. And just a side note for everybody watching, golf clubs, that was the last bag to come. It's been quite an ordeal. I've been in Panama now for 6 days, and they lost my bags. The airline lost my bags. I got delayed, and it was a big nightmare. But my workout clothes came the next day, so I've been running and going on this little, how do I point to that? This little loop. It's pretty cool. 4 days in, my YouTube studio came with the other bag, and just last night, my golf clubs arrived. So I am good to go. I didn't lose any stuff. They did break my suitcase, though. I bought this new suitcase, this, what is it, Samsonite or something, kind of an expensive suitcase. And the cool thing about those suitcases is you get those locks, and they're supposed to be really good. Both of those little zippers are ripped off, so awesome, thanks. But I did get all my stuff back, just side note there. But the point of this minimalism journey, everybody's going to be different, and I'm certainly not telling you where you need to be on the spectrum of minimalism. But if we were to look at this as a spectrum, let me screen share, just double check there. Okay, perfect. So here's the spectrum of how I see it as minimalism. This is most people. Most people have way too much stuff, as I'm going to get into later, and of course they spend way too much money on that stuff. This is what we're trying to avoid. Now, somewhere along this spectrum, hopefully people can kind of inch their way towards the right side. The second level of minimalism is what I would call, and what I call myself, is a stuff minimalist, where the goal here is just to reduce your stuff to only the things you need. It doesn't mean you deprive yourself. It doesn't mean that you need a house that's literally empty. You know, you see pictures that people are sleeping on a blanket on the floor. That's not minimalism. Minimalism is meaning that everything you have in your life serves a purpose. If that's more stuff for you and you use all your stuff, then great. You're a minimalist who has a little bit more stuff. I'm a minimalist that can fit all my life in 3 bags. It's not really about the money, though, for me, as sometimes people, kind of clap back at me and they think they're doing this gotcha moment. They're like, look at this guy talking about how he's a minimalist and he has, he rents a $7,000 a month place. I never said that I don't, when I need something, that I'm not going to pay for it, right? When I need a new computer, I buy one of the best computers. I buy the one with the upgraded memory, and I do all that. My camera, it's a very good camera. I just make sure that my stuff is minimized. When I need something, I get it, and I like to get the good stuff because it tends to last longer. And like I said, I do spend 10 hours a day on my computer, so I don't mind paying the money to get the nice views. But I am a minimalist. I'm just not a pure minimalist, is what I would say. So I'm on the spectrum probably right here, where I have barely any stuff, but it's not like I don't spend money, right? The third level of minimalism is what I would call financial minimalism, or maybe pure minimalism. This is the people that are really doing it both to reduce the amount of stuff, but also to dramatically reduce their expenses. Now, I'm not allergic to saving money. I like to save money as well, but that's not specifically my goal. But there are a lot of people that are on this side. Well, maybe not a lot, but hopefully as the coming years go by, people realize that the way we're structuring our lives, this is not adding value to what we do. So you've got the financial minimalists there. Now, let me just take a short little detour here. close all these windows. I don't like when I've got so many things open. It's confusing. So give me 30 seconds here. Close all these windows. Yeah, okay. Just so I'm not overloading I can already hear the fan spooling up. So what I want to talk about now is some statistics. Just to start this off, let's talk about some stats where some of these might surprise you, and just fair warning, it's not like I went through and I fact-checked all of these and cross-referenced it with all the studies. A lot of them I did, and I think ballpark, a lot of them are pretty accurate, but, take a few of them with whatever size grain of salt you want. But basically, hopefully some of these statistics hit home with some people and they think, yeah, that is me, and I guess I could do without that. But let's get started by saying household consumption is nearly 70% of US GDP now. I don't know if people know that, but I actually have a long-term chart here. You can see that it wasn't always this way. Back in 1965, we were at about 59% of personal consumption as a percentage of GDP. And now it's just been a steady climb upward. And I would imagine with the rise of social media, this is going to get nothing but worse. Like I said, the government loves this. It's almost, whether it's custom designed or not, it's certainly beneficial for them to just have us all working and paying insane taxes and then spending the rest on other stuff. They love that. So, if you want to unplug, you can. But the average US household has 300,000 items. Now, whether the actual number is 200,000 or 400,000, it doesn't matter. The average household, let's be honest, every drawer in your house is full of stuff you probably don't know what's in that drawer, like old batteries from 10 years ago, and you've got 3 tool sets, and you've never tightened a screw in your life. You've got 3 different kinds of vacuums, and you've got hardwood floors. You've got every kitchen appliance known to mankind. You've got a bread maker you haven't used since 1985. You have a Foreman grill. You've got a crock pot. You've got not only a blender, but you've got a juicer as well, and neither one of them get any use. We've got a lot of stuff, right? Clothes, just, I'll get into all the details, but come on, we have too much stuff. An estimated 80% of all items in a home are never used even once. I think we all have experience with that. I mean, I can look around. I used to have stuff. I used to have a bigger home. I used to have stuff. I know a lot of it would just go from the store to a drawer, and that's it. The average U.S. home is 3 times as big as it was in 1950. Yet the average occupancy is down from 3.4 to 2.7. So we have 3 times larger homes and 1 less person living in the home. Seems a bit odd. Make sure you're staring at me and not my ugly written statistics here. 30% of homes with a garage can't fit a car. So basically, there's a lot of people out there, especially people who live in the suburbs. Your garage is basically a secondary storage locker because you've got too much stuff. And how much of that stuff that's in your garage right now are you actually using? 10% of Americans rent off-site storage because they have too much stuff. There are more storage facilities in the U.S. than there are McDonald's restaurants. And we know how much, not us Americans, I'm Canadian, but Canadians are Americans, come on. We know how much we love our McDonald's. There's more storage facilities than there are McDonald's restaurants. I think there's 5 times as many storage facilities as there are Starbucks. Cars. We spend $500 a month on average on car payments. Not all of that is leases, but some people actually lease vehicles for $500 and then just hand the keys back 4 years later. It's bizarre. But yet there's plenty of vehicles out there that are perfectly reliable that will get you point A to point B for $200, $150. And I'll get into later when I talk about my vehicle situation. There are ways to get your vehicle expenses down below $100 and still drive the really cool stuff. I'll get into a specific example there later on. We spend $1,200 a year on technology, 30% of which never gets used. Again, you bought a pair of earphones, went straight into a drawer. But I would also add, probably not only does 30% of it not get used, but 50% of what you do use could probably be older models for half the price. So one of the things that I do, because I am not a minimalist, or I am a minimalist, I want to make this clear because it'll come up later. My wife is not a minimalist. Definitely not a minimalist. So I am a minimalist living with a non-minimalist. I get her all the cool phones and all the new, stuff that comes out, and I just take her hand-me-downs because it doesn't matter to me. I mean, these days, the technology phase is so fast, there's really no added benefit to getting the newer model. Honestly, sometimes it's down to color. You'll ask somebody, oh, what does the new iPhone do? Does it have any cool functions? Yeah, it's red. You'd be like, well, does it do anything? Well, didn't you hear me? I said it's red, and people will pay $1,500 because it's red. It's just, oh, it has 4 cameras instead of 3. Oh, I need that one because mine only has 3. Do they both take good pictures? Exactly the same pictures? Yes, but one of them has 4 loops, and you wouldn't want to be caught dead with a phone that has 3 loops, right? That's where we're at in society. The average home has 7 screens. So it used to be televisions in the 50s and 60s. Now it's 3 iPods or iPads, video game consoles, phones. We've got 7 screens, and the average screen time is now 7 hours a day. So this is what I call the double gut kick, where not only you're spending way too much money on the 7 screens you own, but those 7 screens also require you to watch them for 7 hours a day. So it's like Brad Pitt said in Fight Club, the things you own end up owning you. These screens that we have cost a fortune. We upgrade them every single year. We spend way too much money, and then we sit in front of them for 7 hours. It's a bizarre little cycle that we are in. So shopping. The average American buys 70 pieces of clothing a year and throws away 65 pounds a year, which end up in landfills. Not great. The average person spends $500 a year on clothes they never wear even once. How many of us have done that? I know I have. You go to the store, you're kind of borderline on something, looks pretty good in the store because they have those awesome mirrors, and then you get them home and it goes straight into the closet and you never wear it again. Or you tell yourself, well, I need to lose 5 pounds and then that's going to look good, so I'll just put it to the side, and when I lose a few pounds, I'll crack out that awesome suit or whatever, and you never do. The average woman has 11 bags, and only 3 of them get used. I don't know if my wife is watching right now. She's probably asleep, but 10% of women own more than 20 bags. I can vouch. The average woman has more than 30 pairs of shoes and spends more than $100 on each pair. Again, I'm a minimalist. My wife is not. I can vouch for this one because I bought all 30 pairs, and yes, we spent over $100 on every single one of them. The average woman has over 50 items of makeup, but only uses 4 of them regularly. Not hacking on women here. Men spend money on all kinds of stupid ways as well. But Americans spend $100 billion a year on shoes, jewelry, and watches. They only spend $95 billion a year on higher education. So we spend more on just 3 items. And okay, I'm a watch guy. We'll get into that later as well. But they spend more on that than education. There's 120,000 shopping malls in the US, but only 100,000 schools, which include elementary, junior high, high school, and all private schools combined. There are more shopping malls than schools. And this is fairly relevant recently because we are in this somewhat national debate about whether we're going to forgive student loans, right? We're shopping an insane amount, and then we're going to forgive student loans. I've made it quite clear that while I am super sympathetic to anybody who gets themselves into debt for whatever reason, whether they're responsible for it or not, well, we all are at some point, but whether it's just frivolous or you can kind of understand how it happened, I'm totally sympathetic to any situation people get in, because the weight of that debt it's got to be pretty rough. But on the other hand, and I kind of went on a rant a few months ago about this, not a rant, but just stated my point, that, these are people who got accepted to a university. I think at some point we have to say that, look, if you're smart enough to get accepted to a university, probably you should know that you have to pay money back that you borrowed. I'm just saying. Plus, you get into the whole problem of, well, why just student loans? Why wouldn't we replenish anybody who's in debt? People get into credit card debt for the same reasons. People have medical expenses that were out of nowhere. That's an actual legitimate thing. Some people get, no fault of their own. They get some type of rare, I don't know, God forbid, cancer or something, and they get hit with a bill that's more than they thought, and they go into debt. Should we forgive all of those? What about all the veterans that come home and they have a hard time finding jobs and they find themselves in debt? And should we just Yeah, probably we should, but they can't even get health care. And we're talking about forgiving debt from 18-year-old smart kids who actually didn't know they had to pay off the loans. Where do you stop? What about all the parents that worked really hard, took out two mortgages on their house so that their kid wouldn't be in debt? Do we send those parents a check? Because that kid didn't take the student loan because the parents went into debt. Do we give them a big check too? Where does it end? So it's one of those things where, plus, to tie it into what we're talking about today, how many of those kids who want their student loan paid back actually do have 30 bags? How many of those people actually do lease a car for $600? How many of those people are frequenting the 120,000 shopping malls in the United States? So, I know there's nuance there. I just glazed through a whole bunch of things, and there's exceptions and anecdotal stories on all sides of this. But the overarching thing is we spend too much, and we expect that there's not going to be consequences for that. The average 10-year-old has 240 toys, but only plays with 20 of them more than once. Now, I don't have kids, but I've got this experience. I've got, nieces and nephews and whatever, cousins. You buy them a toy. It looks really cool. You give it to them. They're super happy. They play with it for 20 minutes, and then it's in a drawer somewhere, and it's never used again. Not saying there's a solution. You don't want to, you get that joy out of giving a kid a gift, but at the same time, 240 and they only play with 20 of them. The average kid's birthday party is over $200 now. Now, when I was a kid, I'm old, I'm 46 years old, but when I was a kid, a few party favors and a homemade cake was a birthday. Nowadays, it seems if you don't have one of those inflatable jungle gyms where the whole neighborhood gets to play and you have catered food from an expensive restaurant, is it even a birthday at this point? Does it even count? It's gone way too far. The average wedding is now $30,000. Now, I got married last month, and like I said, I'm a minimalist. My wife is not. I am embarrassed to say that I spent far more than $30,000 on her rings, but I'm 46 years old, and it's a different situation. If I was 26, if she's watching, I'm sorry, you would have got coal. I would not have spent $30,000, anything even close to that. But if we want to go on a little side tangent here, do you have any idea how much that costs people? We're talking about newlyweds here. We're talking about the average age of wedding being in their 20s. 30 grand up front for someone who's 26 years old is an insane expense. Let's say you make 7% a year, just a reasonable rate of return. That $30,000, you're 26 down to age 70? We are talking about you just wasted an inflation-adjusted $268,000 in retirement because you wanted a $30,000 wedding when you're 26 years old. And if you get a better rate of return, nothing crazy, let's say 10%, now all of a sudden, your 70-year-old self is $1 million less off because you wanted a wedding at 26. Now, if there are any women watching me right now, I do apologize. I know the YouTube statistics show that 99% of my audience are men. I don't know why. It's not male specific, but apparently 99% are men. But for the 1% of you who are women watching this, I'm certainly not saying you can't get a good wedding. I'm just saying that there are consequences to dropping $30K when you're 26 years old. And the consequences are, if later on in life you're going to have a great job and everything's smooth, then no problem, enjoy your wedding. But if you're 45 and 50 and you're kind of wondering why we can't make ends meet, and you got to think back, that is a massive hit at the very start of your earning potential. So I would definitely reconsider the expensive weddings if I was you. Like I said, it dwarfs that, and I'm upset about it, but it is what it is. And I don't push my minimalism on anyone else, including my wife. So yeah, it is what it is. But punchline, basically, 50% of Americans don't save any money. 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. This is unacceptable. I understand that inflation and the government is making all kinds of insanely bad decisions and terrible management and unbelievable self-serving laws, and all that stuff is true. It is getting more expensive. It is getting inefficient. It's getting unfair. All of that is true. But we do have some personal responsibility in this as well. And we all, if you're still on the train, we all have a little bit of responsibility. We need to save more money. We are spending too much, and especially because the government's not going to help you. So we have to do it ourselves. And so briefly, because everybody's situation will be different, but how can you save $500 extra a month? I would imagine that everybody watching right now can probably save more than $500 a month. If you really adopted the minimalist lifestyle, trust me, your lifestyle won't be lower at all. In fact, you'll be less stressed, you'll be happier, you'll be focusing on things that actually matter. You'll have a higher standard of living. But homes, like I said, homes are 3 times as big and there's one less person living in them now. I travel the world and I live in Asia, and I've seen different cultures and how they live. I can tell you that other cultures don't all do this. In Asia, when we say we have a home, we say we have an 800,000 square foot home. That's what it is. It's an apartment, but it's fine. I mean, why do I need more than 1,000 square feet? What am I running track inside my house? Why do I need a 3,000 square foot house? It just doesn't make any sense, especially if there's only 2.2 people living in it. But we can all save a little bit of money on our housing situation and not feel like we've downgraded at all. And in fact, for me, I'm huge into tiny houses, but unfortunately in this world, the way that things are structured, I also like views, and they don't actually allow you to buy a plot of land, in the city with a nice view and then slap down a tiny house, a 400 square foot tiny house on it. I would if they let me, but unfortunately they don't let us do that because, again, they want us to be consumers and they want us to buy a 3,000 square foot home in the suburbs. What are they called? The McMansions. They want us to buy McMansions and not be responsible. But everybody can save money on housing. Vehicles, again, this is a huge expense for people. And I am a car guy, so I get it. We like to spend money on our vehicles. But like I said, there are people that lease vehicles for $500. They'll lease a brand new 2022 BMW for $600 a month, and 4 years later give the keys back. I mean, if you're rich, fine, but that just strikes me as a very poor way to allocate money. And if that person wants to do it, again, I'm not a preachy person, do what you do. But if you're also a person who drives a BMW and then wonders why you're only saving $200 a month, that might be something to investigate. Clothes. Do we really need 50 different outfits? For me personally, I have limited my clothes. That's one of the things on my minimalist journey that was probably the easiest thing. Like, there are some things that are harder to downsize. Clothing is not one, at least in my experience, was not one of them. I mean, this shirt that I'm wearing, what I do these days basically is I just buy four different colors of the same shirt if I find one. I found this one at a outlet mall, Hugo Boss. It's a nice brand. It fits me well. It's comfortable, but it's 50% off. I just bought all 4 colors they had, and this is my outfit for the next 2 months. It's just, or 6 months, hopefully. I'll wear them till they're dead, and then I'll go buy some more shirts. But clothing was, obviously supposed to cover our bodies. I don't understand. I can tell you for sure, at no time in my life has any friend or family member ever even once said, "Hey, didn't you wear that last week? I'm pretty sure I saw you wearing that." Nobody has ever said that to me. So I don't understand why we are trying to impress people that, trust me, have no idea what you're wearing. They're not even looking at it. So I'm not quite Mark Zuckerberg with the gray t-shirt, but I wear 4 different colors of the same polo. Trust me, downsizing clothing is probably going to be one of the easiest things. And you'll save way more than $50. I'm just trying to sort of get people to the 500 minimum threshold. But in a minute, I'll go over how much this actually saves you in retirement. Tech. Obviously, we spend too much money on tech. You don't need the Apple red phone when it comes out or whatever it is. You don't need 4 circles on your camera instead of 3 in fear that your friends are going to think you're poor. You just don't. You don't need 3 different earbuds. You just need one. When they're dead, you just go to the store and you get a new one. The store is literally next door. Like I said, there's 120,000 shopping malls in the US. You don't need on standby tech stuff. You use it till it's dead and you get rid of it. And you buy off cycle. You buy a year old. You buy 2 years old. It's unbelievable how much money we could save on just that. Leisure. Certainly not telling people that they can't, go to hockey games if they like them, or they can't go golfing. That costs money, and I'm a golfer. But what I would encourage people to consider is there are some hobbies that you could work into your life that are free, that are actually really good hobbies as well. Like for me, I'm a runner. Running is not free. I have to buy shoes every, 800 kilometers or something, but it's pretty close. I mean, I would consider it almost free hobby, stuff like that. You can have your expensive stuff or your cheap stuff. You just don't want to be one of those people that every time you step out of the house, you're going to be spending money. Every hobby you have costs money. Everything you do costs money. Everywhere you go, you're going to spend 40 here, 50 there. You don't really want to do that. It really starts to add up. Obviously, outside food, I'll just, huge caveat here, I just state it clearly because everybody who follows me regularly knows this already. I spend an exorbitant amount of money on Starbucks. Not here because it's just weird in Panama. The coffee shop situation's not great, so I work in the hotel. But most of the time I'm at Starbucks probably twice a day. So no joke, I probably spend $12 every single day at Starbucks. I personally look at it at renting office space because I do work on my computer for about 10 hours a day. And I'm just personally more efficient if I do 5 hours at home and 5 hours at 2 different coffee shops when I'm out. So I never take coffee to go. I think that's absurd. A $6 coffee to go, what's wrong with the 20-cent coffee at home? But I do rent the office space in Starbucks for efficiency. So caveat there. But people can definitely save money on outside food, whether that's restaurants or just little stuff, convenience store stuff. Not hard to save $25. But the bottom line is that I think, and challenge yourself, maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody watching can save $500. So what does that mean? Well, let's see. What does that mean? How much better off are you going to be? So every month you save $500. Let's say you do only make a 7% return. You do it in a tax sheltered account, IRA, something like that, RRSP if you're Canadian, tax-free savings account, whatever it is. It's only $500 a month, so it's not like you're going to over-limit these accounts. Monthly addition, $5. And we'll say, because the government is horrendous at managing things, we're going to say that the real wage growth is going to be 0. Sorry, folks, it's probably going to be pretty close to 0. So your wages might look like they're growing, but inflation's going to grow as well. So let's just say real wage growth, the days of 2 to 3% real wage growth are, at least for now, kind of seemingly a thing of the past. But again, we're talking about if you start doing this and most people start spending too much money, I'm saying 44 years, age 26 to 70. But let's be honest, the 20 bags, the leasing BMWs, the coffee at Starbucks, that starts young. That starts college. That starts high school. Kids have 4 screens and they're 7 years old. Kids have birthday parties that cost $200. We're talking about a long time horizon. I'm going to use 40 years here, but let's be honest, it could go age 20 to 70. This could be a 50-year, $500 a month savings that people are talking about. But you're talking about over $1 million. So when I labeled this live stream, the easiest $1 million you're ever going to make, that's this. That's it. You're not even a world-beating investor. You're just somebody who doesn't waste money at Starbucks and doesn't lease a BMW, and you're going to be a millionaire. That's all it takes in this consumer world. It really does. People ask me all the time. Emails. People are having a hard time getting ahead. How do I get ahead in my investing? Well, do you want the real answer, or do you want me to just tell you, hey, I've got this cool strategy where you can double your money in a year? That's what people probably want, but the truth is you just need to do things that work consistently, long period of time, make your 15% a year, manage those drawdowns. Might mean some years you don't make any money. I didn't have a good year this year. Do you think my retirement account is bothered by that fact? Not even a little bit. It's just a tiny bump on the road. That's the answer. Unfortunately, what people want is the fast fix answer that, don't worry, I can get you 50. I can get you 75. Oh, I've got this cool UVXY strategy. Trust me, you'll make 100% a year. It's printing money. It's basically income. That's what people want to hear. The real answer is, this is a 40-year time horizon. Have nothing but good years and flat years and manage your drawdowns, and you will get there. As far as the spending goes, how do I save $500 a month? I only make what? The median income in the US is $35,000, $36,000. I don't even know. I haven't checked in a while. How do you save money? Do you want the real answer? The real answer is you're going to have to look at your lifestyle, and you're going to have to stop doing things to impress other people you don't know and probably don't care about. That's the answer. It's an uncomfortable answer. People don't like to hear that. People want the fast fix. Like, I can write a book, 7 ways to save more money, and it's all easy stuff. It's not. It's just mindset. Do you care what other people think? Do you care that you only have 2 circles on your phone camera instead of 4? If you do, you might struggle saving money. Do you care that you have a 2022 Mercedes, or is the 2016 Toyota good enough for you? If you care, you might struggle saving money. You might be one of these people who make 150 grand a year and only save $500 a month. You might be one of those people. So unfortunately, the easy answers are what people crave, but they don't work. The actual answer is invest consistently for a 12 to 18% annual return and live below your means and stop caring what other people think. Trust me, I navigate my life just fine. You might think it's a big step. You might think, oh my God, that's going to be so hard. I can't believe I have to give up everything. No, I'm not here to brag, but I live a pretty good life. I don't miss any of this stuff. I do all kinds of cool stuff in my life. It doesn't have to cost a fortune, and it doesn't have to fill 17 different suitcases. You can do this, trust me. But that's what we're talking about. I know this is not directly investing. Why is this guy going into this in such detail? Well, it's because it really does relate to your investing. Can you imagine if you got $1 million retirement fund head start? And then on top of that, you also get to try to be a better, more savvy investor. You also get to try to have a higher income and save more money. Try to get to 5 million. But you know for sure you're going to be at $1 million because you're not going to drop 30 grand on a wedding when you're 24 years old. You're already at $1 million if you're just managing your consumerism. You're already going to retire a millionaire. Then someone like me can come in and perhaps help you. Instead of just retiring at 1 million, maybe now we can ramp it up and we can get you to 2 or 3. But step number 1, everybody can save more money. I know that's true for sure. So again, I'm not a guru. It's not like I've written books on this subject. I don't know what I'm talking about. But if anybody's curious, I'll just run through what my basic belongings are. Like we said, this is what I own. If anybody wants to know what it is and what kind of life I lead, here's my stuff. Camera gear. I've got for all you tech heads out there, if you're interested, if you're starting a YouTube channel in 2022, that's awesome. I think it's great. I think everybody should do that and learn the skill of, being on camera and editing videos and all that. I'm using the Sony a7S III. Very, very good camera. I'm probably going to have that thing for at least 5 years, but probably longer. Tamron 17 to 28 mil lens. It's a very good lens. 17 to 28. So the length of my desk doesn't interfere. Like, it's not a prime 20 lens or something. I've got an Elgato XLR audio mixer over here, and I've got a Shure SM7B microphone. Aside from that, I've got an LED light that I travel with, and I've got 2 of those. Give the live streams a little bit of color. And cords. That's about it. That's my live stream studio. I carry it with me all around the world. It's very small and compact. Again, everything fits in 3 bags. Golf clubs, you can see them over there. I'm so happy that I got those. I was worried that I was going to lose at least 1 bag, but I didn't. I got it all back. But I basically have golf clubs, shoes, hats, rain gear, rangefinder. Most of it is in the golf bag. Sometimes I'll put my hats on the wall in my live streams just to add a little color to the stream. But I own that. Clothes, like I said, I have 4 of this shirt that I'm wearing in every color. I've got a blue, a green, and a red. So tune in later. You might see me wearing some of those. I've got workout clothes, dress clothes. I've got 2 suits. I've got 1 pair of dress shoes, maybe 3 dress shirts, a couple of ties, stuff like that. Now, again, this is not saying that that's what you have to do. If you're the type of person that has to wear a suit to work, I mean, you got 5 suits and that's what it is. It's fine. Minimalism isn't about having nothing. Minimalism is about only having what you actually need. That's the key to all of it. So, yeah, if you're a woman and you're working in an office, if you're you're a lawyer or something, and you have to wear, maybe not have to, but you feel the need to wear 4 or 5 different outfits every week and mix the colors and have 3 pairs of shoes, great. Don't need 30. What else do I have? Tech, very little. It actually all fits basically in my carry bag, so that's why I had it from day one. MacBook, iPhone, iWatch, earphones, Aura Ring, that's it. The Aura Ring, by the way, like I said, my wife, love her to death. She's not a minimalist. Her rings cost a fortune. We actually exchanged rings. I used my Aura night ring. I don't have a wedding ring. I just gave her that and said, give me this back. That's good for me. I don't want a ring. But yeah, I don't own much tech. This is one thing that I can help people out, just give you a few thoughts. Sometimes I own a car. One thing that I did, where is it? You can see I made a video. This was one of my cars a couple years ago that I ended up selling when I moved over to Asia. I came to Canada. I knew that I was going to be in Canada for about a year, so I bought this car, and then I sold it. I ended up staying in Canada longer, so I actually had this for about 18 months. But I bought it, then I sold it 18 months later when I left the country. So very cool car. Here I am going off on people buying BMWs, and I had a pretty cool sports car. I mean, it's not, some Ferrari or anything, but for me as a car guy, manual transmission, this thing kind of, pushed all the right buttons. Pretty cool. But what I do with vehicles is always buy secondhand, of course. I mean, the people that lease brand new vehicles, I don't know what you're doing, but you buy secondhand and you make sure that your entry and exit price is very close. So in the example of my Corvette, you want to narrow down the cars you own that you like to 2 or 3, and you really want to get to know them and get to know the pricing. So I knew what a good price to buy it was, and I knew what a good price to sell it was. So I bought it for $57,000. I sold it for $55,300, I think. So I drove it for 18 months, and it cost me $1,700. So less than $100 a month. There was no maintenance. It was worked like a dream. There was no extra maintenance. I drove a really cool car. We went on road trips. I put on 13,000 kilometers, I think, on it, and cost me less than $100 a month. One thing that I did, and this is why I encourage some people to start YouTube, get used to being on camera, because as you can see, when I sold the car, I actually just made a little YouTube video and I attached it to the advertisement for the ad. And you can be sure that, wait a second, what's going on? Some in these CSEP. Hopefully you're all still here. You can be sure that if you make a little video and you explain everything and you show them, in detail, you talk about all the cool stuff that it has, you're going to be able to sell your car for the right price, right? One of the cool things about the Corvette is the roof comes off. So I basically just did a video showing them how to take the roof off and put it in the trunk. And this action of just making a very quick YouTube video meant that I got to drive a really cool car for 18 months for 13,000 kilometers, and it barely cost me anything. Whereas these other people are doing this crazy stuff. So the car that I bought recently, I wasn't planning on being in Vancouver for very long, but one of the other go-to vehicles for me, and all my family and friends can attest to this, this was my vehicle in Calgary, or in Canada here. I bought this thing over a year ago. I didn't plan on being here, but I actually got stuck in Canada. But it's a pretty cool SUV. It's the Infiniti QX70. This is my 6th one, I think. I've had a white one, a black one, a couple of gray ones, a blue one. I just keep getting these because I really like them. I can buy it for a year. I can sell it a year later. This is a 2017, so I bought it and sold it and got a really good price on both ends. And that's because I know the pricing. I know what they're supposed to be selling for. And none of this, lease a car and for $500 a month and give the keys back. All I have to pay is the depreciation. And that's it. So you really want to make sure you're doing that. get used to the price trends. I actually did a Corvette full video, like a 20-minute video breakdown of the depreciation curve and where you should buy them and the options that are worth the money and the ones that depreciate quickly. You really want to get in there. I don't know why I saw this. It just glanced over and I saw somebody's comment. I'm going to get to the Q&A soon, but space for you would be amazed. The Corvette C7 had a bigger trunk, a more practical trunk than that SUV I showed you. You're going to think, oh, you're out of your mind. That Corvette, I picked Vanessa up from the airport in that Corvette. Vanessa travels like she travels. She had 5 bags, I think. We fit the whole thing, and I picked her up from the airport. We went on road trips, 2 suitcases, side by side, sets of golf clubs in there. It's the biggest trunk you've ever seen. The new C8, now that it's a mid-engine, now you've got the front trunk, the back trunk. You can fit golf clubs, you can fit little bags, but it's no longer the dream trunk space. But yeah, I don't know why that caught my eye, but yes, absolutely. C7 Corvette, probably the best sports car on the planet if you actually need it to be practical as well, because the trunk is just truly ridiculous. It is so big. I don't care about lap times. I wish the C8 was still the C7 with the big trunk. But anyway, that's mostly what I own. The only other thing that I own is I like watches. And the reason that I like watches, it's not because I show off. In fact, what I will say is I've done, 250 live or videos. I've done hundreds of hours of live streams. Has any of you ever seen me wearing a watch? I mean, it's right over there. I could just wear the watch. I have expensive watches. I could do that. But again, this is for me. My watches are for me. I buy the watch to sort of mark a special milestone that I reach in my businesses, basically. This goes back to my pro golf days where you get trophies and plaques and, you can forget for years, but when you look at that trophy, all the memories start flooding back and you're like, wow, that was a great tournament and I played so well. So I do the same thing with, luxury watches where I deprive myself for, a year if I have to. And then when I reach a milestone, I'll get myself a watch. But of course, as a minimalist, they do fit and, I can have a little watch case and I can have all the stuff in it. But I don't wear them for anybody else. It's not like I'm trying to show off or anything. You may see me in one, you may not. Maybe in the future I'll share what I've got. Maybe I won't. It's entirely for me. Again, like I said in the beginning, we have to stop doing things to impress other strangers that we really don't care about. And I very much appreciate every single person watching right now. I'm not saying I don't care about you. All the followers on Twitter, the people on YouTube, I cannot thank you enough for the support. But I could care less whether you think I'm rich or poor. I could care less whether you think I'm trendy or not. I don't care what other people think of me. I'm not saying you have to do that as well. If you have a flashy watch and you want to go post it all over the internet, go ahead. I'm not judging. You want to have a 2022 Mercedes, C63 AMG or whatever it is, go for it. It's just not for me. I'm not interested in that. I do functionality. I have what I have because it has a place in my life, and that's it. So I think we'll leave it there. I think the bottom line for all of this is essentially that we're all here for investing and trading and volatility and all that stuff, but just don't overlook the importance of reining in our spending. Not only, like I said, is going to save you money, and you could actually be a millionaire already if you just stop spending the money. Like it's really not that difficult to build up $1 million retirement fund. Sounds like an arrogant, snobby thing to say. It's really not. It's a lot of time. And it's $500 a month. That's all it is. I didn't even go through the numbers of somebody who makes a good rate of return, but trust me, it's multiple millions. So you might be there already, but don't overlook the benefit of doing that for yourself. So what I want to highlight right before we get to the Q&A, I actually have a video. It's called 12 times 30-day challenges for 2020. Now, I made this video January 6, 2020. We had some fun with this for the first couple of months. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and everything kind of went out the window. So I didn't even kind of circle back and do this. It was just a video I made that's gone. But one thing, the reason that I made the January challenge, track all your expenses to the penny, is because a lot of people really don't understand how much they spend. They just don't even know. But if you track it and you see it written down, Trust me, you spend more money than you need to spend. I'm not even telling you to be a minimalist. You can save more money, trust me. So challenge number one, now that the pandemic is partially behind us, as we will say, maybe we will circle back and we'll do those 12 challenges. A lot of them, if you want to see some of the other ones, a lot of them will help people with their long-term investing. Oh, I remember making this, talking about Vanessa's bags. These are the challenges. And you can see a lot of them have to do with, in a roundabout way, saving money. So 1 hour a day building a side business. I always recommend people do this. 1 hour a day in screen time. Obviously, we're at 7 hours on average now. 7 hours? That's crazy. Take a walk, drink water. Spend 1 hour a day on your hobby. No food or drinks outside. That's a good big one. Big money saver. Oops. And I think I made the final one on your life. Spend less money during the holidays. This is a big one too, because sometimes being a minimalist is hard because the people around you are not minimalists. And what I've just accepted is that this is an individual path. You can't, it's like most things in life. It's like politics, it's like religion, it's like anything. If you're going to stress out about trying to make everybody else you care about in your life be like you and think like you and do like you, you're going to be butting heads a lot. So like I said, I don't push this on Vanessa at all. She gets whatever she wants. I hope that she makes her own journey at some point in the future. And, politics wise, I hope that people see things clearly and they don't get bogged down in things that are toxic and whatnot. But I don't do that. Religion, I wouldn't push anything on anybody. This is your own path, but Christmases, birthdays, it can be a little bit hard because sometimes you might feel like you're also depriving other people. So I'm not saying that this is going to be easy for everybody. It's really not. It's a journey and it might take you several months, but it's a worthwhile journey. Your stress levels will go way down if you can reduce your stuff. Like I said in my tweet, it is liberating. That is the word I would use. It is liberating to not have any stuff. For me to know that if I had to, not that I have to, this isn't the movie, Heat, where De Niro says, make sure that you can pick up in 30 seconds or less if you feel the heat. This isn't that. I don't have to pick up and run from this hotel room. But it is kind of liberating to know that I probably could within about 20 minutes, and I could be at the airport with everything I own like 20 minutes from now, if I really wanted to. Not that you need to, but it is quite liberating. But the stress levels will be down. You'll see your bank account growing. You'll see your account growing, your retirement fund. You'll think, well, now I don't have to chase those 50% of your gains because I'm basically already a millionaire. I just have to save $500 a month for the next 20, 30 years, and I'm going to be just fine. Stress is down. Quality of life is up. Standard of living is up. And then you'll start focusing on things that really matter in life. Relationships, experiences, things like that. So that's my spiel. Apologies if it sounded a little preachy. I'm not saying that in it that way. I'm a living example of somebody that went through that. I used to have stuff. I used to have an expensive home. I used to have that thing. Not anymore. That's not for me. So, all right. God, I'm looking at the clock. Did that really take me an hour? I'm sorry, but it's New Year's, so who cares? That's fine. Hopefully people learned a few things, got a few ideas. Doesn't have to be an overnight change. You can work on it slowly. And like I said, challenge for 2022, January, track all your expenses. You may be surprised. You've got a lot of holes in that boat. Try to patch those up and your investing will also be stress-free. Like for me, for example, when you have a year that you're not happy with, an investing year where you're not happy with, I can tell you I still saved money. I can tell you I didn't waste money on consumer items and materialism, so at least there's that. Life in general just gets much better when you've got a hold on your spending, so I would certainly encourage that. All right. Okay. Oftentimes the VIX, it's a weird shift going from talking about materialism to talking about the VIX, but here we go. Often the VIX term structure can be simultaneously in contango and backwardation at different points on the curve. How do you interpret the curve in these situations? So you've got typically, 8, say, futures going out, 9 or 10, depending on what website you're looking at. There are times when it will be just a perfect contango curve or a perfect backwardation curve, but there can also be times where there's a little bit of a kink somewhere. So one thing that I've been pointing out recently is that the M4 to M7 VIX futures, which used to be products like the ZIV, the current VIXM, the current VIX or VXZ, the VIXM, they use the M4 to M7. And in the last 3 years, they've been very flat and kinked oftentimes. So you can look at the VIX futures, first of all, as a freely traded market. So they can do whatever they do. There's no system that it has to come in. Volatility ETPs are very limited. They obviously only function based on the value of the futures they hold. The futures themselves are freely traded. So if there's an election or something, or if there's a Christmas, or, occasionally you'll see a kink in the curve and you can identify something, like maybe there's a upcoming Fed meeting that's just going to be really instrumental and we're expecting some fireworks. Well, you might see a kink in the curve. You might see people hedging maybe the following month, right? Because look at the expiration dates. But also sometimes the curve is just different because short-term and long-term expectations might be different. So my explanation for why the M4 to M7 is so depressed in the last few years is because a lot of us probably, and you can quiz yourself and see if this applies to you, but a lot of us probably feel like short term, I don't really see any headwinds or bumps that'll really derail anything, right? So the front 2 or 3 months are going to be pretty steep. But 4 to 7 months out, I mean, the economy is garbage. The Fed is just irresponsible as could be. The government doesn't seem to know what they're doing. Policy doesn't make any sense. So it makes a little bit of sense for there to be a little bit of a decoupling there. But to answer your question, just in general, it is because it's a freely traded market. The shape of the curve is representing the real dollar activity of those traders, probably largely institutional hedging, because us regular retail traders don't often dip a toe into the VIX futures market. So typically you're looking at, you can consider it sophisticated capital that's pushing those futures around. It is what it is. Sometimes if there's a kink, you might want to identify why. Sometimes it's really vague and nebulous. You really don't know why. But yeah, they can be different. The days of 2012 to 2017, the golden era for the short vol trade essentially, it was very normal to see the curve quite consistent, right? Either steep contango or boom, European debt crisis. Oh, it's just complete backwardation, beautiful backwardation curve. Those days are kind of over. Everybody's all over the map. For every person you think is bullish, you're going to find somebody bearish. The curve is going to do what it's going to do. So as far as the volatility ETPs, they only hold the futures that they hold. So you don't have to worry if there's a curve, if there's a kink in the curve 8 months out, that has zero effect on something like UVXY or VXX. It doesn't affect it. So. Okay, can you please clarify the 1% liquidation value calculation for broken wing butterflies? I can only find the instructions for the put. So 2 things. First of all, I'll tell you where to find a much better explanation that I will give you now. So you probably want to go to the YouTube channel and you want to go to videos, and there's one called Broken Wing Butterflies. This one here. So it's episode 26. I actually went through the entire thing, the way to calculate the 1% as well as how to scale it easily when you're actually entering your trades. Let's close some of these windows down. But the second thing that I want to say is the 1%. The reason that I do the 1%, so let's find this UVXY one works. This is a 1% broken wing butterfly. The reason that I do 1% here is because it's a far easier way to scale the proper size. So if I were to be selling a VXX short put option, which is sort of the same strategy, it's the vol trend strategy. Sometimes we sell short VXX put options. Sometimes we buy broken wing butterflies. When I'm doing the puts, it's a 20% allocation. And that's very easy to do because all you really do is you just take the strike price. So if we're doing the VXX, I'm just going to take the strike price, say I'm doing this one, 18 times it by 100 because one option contract is 100 shares of the underlying, and it's $1,800. So you just take 20% of your capital divided by $1,800, and that's how many contracts you buy. But broken wing butterflies are extremely capital efficient. They cost very little money to open. So, 20% of a portfolio would be an enormous position of a broken wing butterfly. So what I like to do instead is just choose how much I'm willing to lose. 1% of my portfolio on this trade. The reason I'm willing to lose 1% on this trade is because if that trade did lose 1%, this is the trade right here. If this trade did lose 1%, remember it was opened when the UVXY was all the way back here, I have 80% of my portfolio that is net long equities, leveraged, and net short vol. So this trade, while it could lose 1% of my overall net liquidation value, which sounds like a lot, maybe not, 1% is not that much, but the other 80% of my portfolio will make far more than 1%. So 1% is kind of the scaling that I go with. It's just a far easier way to scale a trade than trying to scale it off a 20% allocation. Because broken wing butterflies, again, they cost almost nothing to open. To tie it back to something I said earlier, remember, selling undefined naked options on vol ETPs is super capital intensive. It costs a lot of capital for even one contract. So that's the benefit of butterflies as well, is you can do anything you want with them, and you can risk 1% of your portfolio. And if you get it right and the UVXY decays down, 10, 15% in that time period, you're going to hit your perfect peak and it's going to be a good trade. So that's the 1%. That's where it's coming from. But if you want a detailed explanation of how to actually get the contract number, then watch that video. Watch that live stream. I went through in all the detail you need. Happy New Year. Yep, you too. It's been a good one. Been a good year. Hopefully next year's even better. The wife and I can now say that now. I was married last month. The wife and I have a couple of trips planned, which should be fun. I'm going to continue being a complete minimalist, and wink, wink, maybe somebody else will join me. No pressure. Everybody's on their own journey. Any thoughts about VIX minus volley versus skew index? Do you use skew? I do not use skew. I think better place to point you for this question. I think I did one, but I'm really not sure. So I actually have another YouTube channel. I don't know if people are aware of that, but I actually have a YouTube channel called the Clips channel, which what the Clips channel is essentially from these live streams, every time there's a good question that somebody asks, I just chop it up and I release just that question. So I'm pretty sure I did something on the skew. So do you ever use the skew index? Somebody else already beat you to this question. So there's a little bit of an explanation here, but just, I don't like always saying, hey, just go watch it there. The reason that I don't use the skew is that it gets into a little bit more detail on the construction of it, but it's not actually accurately measuring what it's supposed to be measuring. It's very poorly constructed, and you'll get sometimes extended periods where the skew is just raging higher, right? It's just an extreme level, or maybe low levels, and it doesn't line up at all with what we're seeing in the market. And then other times it's really quite good. It's accurate, but the hit and miss nature of the skew is not something that I can ever factor into my models. I need something to be consistent. I need something to be measuring exactly what it says it's measuring, and that's that. So something that is sort of similar is the VIX minus volley ratio, the residual, as I call it, because the VIX index uses an entire strip of many, many strikes of the S&P 500 options market on the SPX, and the volley uses only at the money strikes on the SPY. So the difference between them, of course, is the out of the money activity. So if you just take the VIX minus the volley, now you're looking at something very specific, which is all the out of the money activity. Very helpful for strike selection and options trading, and there's a lot of practical applications. So what I would do is I would point you to the VIX minus volley and two other indexes called TDEX and SDEX. They are much better. They are constructed very well. They measure exactly what they say to measure. They're measuring a 3 standard deviation out of the money premium. you should look into the TDEX and the SDEX and the skew index. Apologies to whoever constructed it, who manages it, who profits from it. It's a personal opinion, but this volatility trader doesn't like your index. Sorry. It's too hit and miss for me. Doesn't quite capture what it's supposed to be capturing. Yes, I got my golf clubs back. Thank you for asking. Took 6 days. It was real touch and go there. Even 4 days in, they were like, I don't know where it is. We're trying to track it down, but I did get it. So all is well. That was actually the bag I wanted least. So yeah, I could have sacrificed the golf clubs. They can always be replaced. Somebody actually asked me before. I also saw it briefly. So what I'm using, if anybody's curious, these are Mizuno HMB irons. I would be using just the straight muscle back Mizunos. I've always been a Mizuno, blade fan basically. But I suck now. I don't golf very often. I am mostly working. So my pro golf days are long in the rearview mirror. And so now I need a little bit of forgiveness. But those HMBs actually look like blades. So that's not why I bought them. I bought them because they look amazing and they feel good. But they're actually hollow and they have a cavity and they're quite forgiving. So you can kind of look like you're a player, but you're not really a player. But yeah, that's what I'm using for golf clubs. What else have we got? Okay, we get this one all the time. I suppose I should make a standalone video at some point because this one comes up every stream. I'd like to use options for the whole portfolio. So for anybody who's curious, we use options for only one of the strategies. Only the tactical volatility uses long-dated, long VXX put options to represent short volatility positions. And we do that because options trading is accessible in any account structure pretty much anywhere in the world for any country, whereas there's actually a lot of regulations that sometimes stop people from using SVXY or UVXY. So we've got one strategy that people can use stock replacement and actually get their trades done with options only. I know where this is going. Can you quickly explain how to select them and replicate long stock positions? Do you think performance will be similar? So stock replacement works on everything. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with stock replacement. So for example, our SPY, well, let's use the Qs. Our Q position right now, we are long the NASDAQ, right? So if you wanted to replicate this position, instead of just buying 100 shares of the Qs, you could just do a long dated. This one seems good. I typically go about 100 to 130 days out, but you get what you get and it's not available. So there's 168. What you could do is just buy a deep in the money call option on the Qs, and one contract is equivalent to 100 shares of the underlying. Now, you're never going to get a 1 delta, but depending on how liquid it is and which product it is, sometimes you can get a 0.7 that's very efficient. And of course, the Qs is a great thing to trade on. So you can see how far in the money I'm going here. There's 12,000 contracts of the 340. That would be fine. That's a delta 80. So you're getting basically 80% of the movement of the underlying Qs using an option that would cost you very little. Like this is $67. It's not going to cost anything really even close to, and the closer you go to the money, the less it actually costs. Options are very capital efficient. However, so like I was saying, you can do this with all of our positions, with the SPY, the Qs, anything. The problem is you actually do need a reasonable sized account. You need a pretty large account. I mean, unfortunately in the trading world, the more capital you have, the more efficient things get. So you just have to deal with that. If you are doing that on the Qs, for example, one contract is equal to 100 shares of the underlying. 100 shares of the Qs is already a decent sized position, right? So you might run into that problem. But let's say you have an account that can do 100 and even more than 100. Well, options, you can't do 1.1. You have to go one contract to two contracts. The difference between 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3, these are massive differences. Whereas the difference between 100 shares of the ETF versus 110 shares, that's a lot less, right? Now, if you have a very large account and you're trading things that have a low dollar value, you might want to look into the individual sector ETFs, like a XLB or, the consumer staples or whatever it is. Sometimes the dollar value is lower. You do need a liquid options market. But sometimes you can get to the point where, the difference between 15 contracts and 16, the efficiency is a little bit better there. So unfortunately, doing an entire portfolio of stock replacement is totally doable. Performance, if you had a lot of money, would be the same. You can always just match your deltas. Even if you get a 0.8, you can just buy 6 contracts for every 5. And now, of course, you've filled the gap of your delta and you can get a delta 1. The problem is you're talking about quite a bit of capital. So that's why we do stock replacement in as few cases as we can. And ETFs are always easier. But if you are a European and you have no choice, then you have no choice. What you could do then is, if you don't have enough money, instead of trading all 3 tactical strategies, you could maybe choose your favorite one and reduce it that way. That would make it more efficient. And again, like I said, try to find some little smaller dollar value ETFs, SPY Qs. These are at 400 and stuff. It's really hard to trade efficiently at something that's that expensive. But bottom line, yes, technically, you should not see performance bleed, and it can all be totally done. Just, I don't want to tell somebody that's on a smaller account that's like, what is going on? I can't even afford 1 contract. Yeah, unfortunately, maybe not. Become a minimalist, save more money. 10 years from now, you'll be able to do it. Do you have any advice on whether automatic trading might be useful? Are you talking about auto trading? Like, you see these services out there that advertise auto trading, where you pay them a $50 subscription and you set up your account and everything tracks in your account with what they say? If that's what you're talking about, I don't have that. And the reason I don't have that is because, technically speaking, while the SEC and regulators typically overlook things like that, and a lot of people utilize it, technically speaking, that is illegal. Now, gray area or not, it is illegal for a non-registered advisor to be acting as a custodian for money for people. And whether it's a third party or not, that client is being put into trades that they are not actually executing themselves. So I always follow the strictest of regulations with everything that I do. I don't have to, I suppose. I am a subscription-based model, but I don't consider myself a subscription service. I consider myself an asset manager, a risk manager, who, because of my lifestyle of moving around the planet and being a digital nomad, and because of that, I can really only do the subscription model. I don't want to move back to Vancouver and be a registered advisor. I have all the certifications that all those other asset managers have. I did all the courses. I could register tomorrow and be an RIA myself in Canada. I just don't want to. My lifestyle is conducive to something else. I need to be, location independent. So I've chosen the subscription model. But that doesn't mean that I behave as if I'm just some wild, wild west subscription service. I report results every month. I follow all industry regulations. I do everything on the up and up. Everything is like that. So technically speaking, what you're talking about is illegal. Hopefully that's what you were asking. If it's something else, automatic trading, I don't know what you mean. But if you mean auto trading, literally auto trading, no. I would imagine I would not get reined in by the SEC, especially since I'm not even American. But I just, no, I don't want to. I don't want to be acting as a custodian for money if I'm not a registered advisor. It's just, no. And I'd be very wary of other people who are willing to do that, because if they're willing to break rules like that, there's no telling what else they're willing to bend. My trading platforms did see record user growth over the past year, and it kind of seems like trading got into mainstream. Do you think most of them will stay? And if so, will they get positive returns? Well, we can say definitively that is true. And while there's no way to directly tie the two, like it is the pandemic, and we see volumes of retail trading going up, and we see options trading hitting record amounts, coupled with stimmy checks and pandemics and quarantines. Yeah, that's what happened. It's a guess. I mean, you're asking my opinion. Do you think most of them will stay? No, because investing is very, very difficult. And although the S&P 500 cooperated this year for anybody who took on risk, no, that's not going to be the case going forward. It's not like the world has fundamentally changed and now everybody, even with 6 months of experience, is suddenly going to be, making 15% a year. You got to remember the smartest people in the world, the best and brightest on Wall Street, all the hedge funds, they're still making the same low rate of return. Investing is just as hard now as it ever was. We're just coming off a combination of a year that rewarded recklessness, coupled with people at home with not much else to do, and they're on their computer, and their buddy says, hey, I made this trade on Tesla or AMC, and you should jump in. And a lot of people are coming in. But there's going to be an exodus as well when people realize just how difficult it is to manage risk. Yeah, risk didn't materialize this year. Every time volatility spiked, it just fizzled out and died. Okay, yeah, it rewarded risk in 2021. Reckless traders probably made a fistful of money this year. Great, good for you. What I would tell people is, if I am speaking directly to somebody who made a really good rate of return in 2021, be careful. Take your money, be happy you made it, and I'm happy you made it too. I'm not negative on that. I love to see people make money. I'm just saying that the way that you make money sometimes will determine your future success. And if you thought 2021 was easy pickings, well, you were right, but I can tell you almost certainly that's not going to work going forward. I don't think we're going to see a market like this for very much longer, and maybe not even again, or at least for another cycle of 10, 15 years, something like that. Markets have a way of disappointing people when they get confident in and rewarded for not much actual alpha or edge, right? I'm trying to dance around not being too insulting to anybody who did really well, because good for you. I mean, it was there for people who were just kind of leveraging things and kind of covering their eyes and hoping for the best. It was one of those years where you would have been rewarded. It gets back to that concept of when you go to Las Vegas, the absolute best outcome would be to just lose all the money in your pocket on the first day and just don't go back to the casino. The worst thing that can happen is somebody goes on a nice run at the craps table or the roulette table, and they actually think they have an edge. They're like, I got a system. If you go red, black, 22 up, do you? No, the house is obviously going to win in the future. So you'd rather people just lose their money and understand, wow, that's actually harder than I thought. And if you want to be a trader, then hunker down and learn. I'm not discouraging anybody from doing that. But there is a problem when people get rewarded a little bit too quickly and easily. It can lead to further pain. So hopefully everybody who made a bunch of money this year isn't getting too ahead of themselves. But yes, I suspect that the masses will thin out a little bit. I don't think the world of investing has fundamentally changed in the last 2 years. I just don't. I think it's just a very strange time, and things have a way of normalizing. So we welcome everybody who wants to take an active role in their investing. I think there's really nothing better a person can do than really narrow their focus on paying attention to their finances, both on the savings side and the minimalism, as well as the investing. Awesome. The more people that join the trading world, the better. I just don't like when people get rewarded for reckless trades. It's dangerous. I've been doing this now for 16, going on 17 years. 2005, I retired from pro golf, and I basically immediately started options and derivatives trading. Didn't go into much in the stock world. I was just derivatives right from the start. So 17 years in the vol space. Believe me, I know what it means when people get rewarded for reckless behavior, and I know what tends to happen to them when the market decides to go the other way. So hopefully people don't have to learn those painful lessons, because my email inbox fills up with very sad stories that make this grown man cry sometimes. All right, which volatility indicator told you to move to safety to avoid Volmageddon? The only signal I noticed was M1, M2 going negative the Friday before. It seems to have come out of nowhere. That was one of them. right? The VIX futures on Friday, February 2nd, dipped down to, I believe, 4.27 or something, negative backwardation. So, I mean, if anybody was short vol on February 5th, I don't ever like to tell people, wow, you didn't know what you were doing. But being short vol when the VIX futures are in backwardation is not only super risky from a macro look, like backwardation means something. It means that backwardation only happens 16% of the time. It's in contango 84% of the time. So if we're in backwardation, take it as a warning sign, obviously. But it's also, with respect to volatility ETPs, literally a mathematical headwind at that point. The VIX futures are going to have a negative roll yield. And those volatility ETPs, if you're short them, well, now you're actually fighting a mathematical headwind. So the combination of it's just a giant red flag of risk, plus it's a literal mathematical headwind, nobody should have been short vol going into Volpocalypse. Now, a lot of people were. A lot of people like to play the contrarian. Well, what do contrarians get? Many years of good results, and then a massive gut kick once every 5 years. That typically is what will happen. That's what happened on Volpocalypse. There were a lot of people who were saying, boy, VIX is high, and this is Friday, February 2nd. This is the perfect time to short vol. Let's fade this VIX spike. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I got into a Twitter beef, basically, with another fairly well-known person who was saying that, who was saying this is just a perfect setup signal to go short vol. And we argued back and forth on Friday, through the weekend, right until Monday. I was saying, hold on, like this is not the signal you think it is. And he's like, oh, you're crazy. And then, of course, Volpocalypse happened. From February 6th to February 30th, not to make this about business or money, but I had, 50 new subscribers come to my service because many of them named him by name. They're like, wow, he got us into an epic decline. Like they lost 70, 80% of their money. Don't be a contrarian. So if you're asking specifically, the VIX futures were good enough, but beyond the VIX futures, let me pull up my email so I can, or actually I'll use the website. If you go on my website, there's also a volatility dashboard. It's not updated, so don't look at these numbers as like this is the current values. This is just a page showing what some of these metrics are. And then of course you can click each one of them, and each one of them will have either an article or a video talking about what it is. But you highlighted the VIX futures, which were backward on February 2nd. Yeah, that was one. But M4 was as well. Front month roll yield, VX30 roll yield, the entire cash VIX term structure, this thing was also backward. Everything was ugly. It was an absolute no-brainer to exit out. Now, I didn't only exit on February 2nd. We actually exited before that. I was out on January 29th, and I was out into full safety. So I didn't even suffer the drawdowns from January 29th until February 5th. Remember, the markets also went down on the 30th and the 31st and the 2nd. Those were bad days as well. We missed all of them because my volatility barometer basically caught the signal very early. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes the market has to move first, and then you move out the next day, and you get gut kicked for one day. Sometimes you catch it the day before or 2 days before. That's what volatility, it's not always perfect, but using volatility metrics means you're never going to be in an extended drawdown. You're always either going to get out the day or two before because things elevate and then the market crashes, or the market's just going to out of nowhere crash like 6 times in 2021. It just kind of, everything's smooth, and then all of a sudden the market was the first to go and volatility was the lagger. Well, then you get gut kicked for one day, but at least it's only one day. So yeah, there was the whole list. I don't know if that's helpful for you, the whole list. But if you wanted to narrow in on the most important ones, it's actually not the M1, M2, because remember, that doesn't take into account the days to expiration. So what you really want to focus on, for me personally, is the adjusted M1, M2, where this metric is actually calculating the actual days to expiration as well, right? How the volatility ETPs actually function. And you can go through the formulas, and I kind of basically just showed people how to do it if you're interested in that kind of geeky, boring stuff. But M1, M2 VIX futures adjusted is a good one. The VX30 to VIX roll yield's a good one. For me personally, which I don't share the methodology, but the cash VIX oscillator is one of my favorites. VXX crush level. Of course, my barometer is the highest, the most specific volatility metric, which caught it, of course, very early as well. But yeah, the VIX futures, the M1, M2 VIX futures aren't the best one. But in that case, because Apocalypse was so easy to see ahead of time, it was good enough. Futures were backward, Thursday, basically. Okay, this is good. I've been studying term structure and VRP and noticed a marked improvement in my back tests and modeling. What should I study next? That's awesome. VRP, like my trader's VRP or just standard simple VRP. Both are good, but if you've been studying them, you might notice that they're not always correlated with the other metrics. And in fact, sometimes they're actually contrarian. So that in itself can be a strength. You don't want everything you're looking at to be the same directional exposure. So that is, the VRP is actually does not correlate very well with the other metrics, which is a good thing. After that, you said term structure. I assume you mean the VIX futures term structure. I would probably get into the cash VIX index term structure, which would be the VIX 9D, the VIX, VIX 3M, VIX 6M. Start diving into that because, of course, those are different, right? The VIX futures and the S&P 500 options market, while there is correlation there, these are different markets and they're both freely traded. The options market and the futures market don't have to align with each other all the time. So if you're studying the VIX futures, that is tracking the S&P 500 options market. If you do the 90, 30, 93-day, 6-month, if you're doing that cash VIX, you're getting metrics from a different place, right? Which is good. Oh, sorry, I said that backwards, but I think you get the point. I would go into that next. That would be a good thing to nail down. That's why I focus on it, and it's in the email. I wouldn't put it in the email as a central chart that I show people every single day if it wasn't valuable. So I've been living minimalist for 7 years now. Wouldn't trade it for anything. I know. I feel it as well. Sometimes people think, what a sacrifice. Like, you don't have any stuff? What do you do if you whatever, this and that? Let me ask you. I mean, the people watching right now, you probably have a bread maker, don't you? I know you do. Somewhere stuffed in the back cupboard in your kitchen, you've got a bread maker. When was the last time you made bread? You've got 2 juicers. Do you even juice, or are they just covered in mold? Can you throw those away? I mean, the Foreman grill is very 80s from my childhood, but you probably have one, right? These are not sacrifices. When you get into the sacrifices, you're talking about, well, I'm telling you to probably consider downsizing your home. Is that a sacrifice? For me, absolutely not. I don't want to highlight, I already kind of hammered in on Vanessa's spending a little bit here. I don't want to go on my sister as well, but my sister just moved recently into a new house, and I'm very happy for her. Congratulations. It's amazing to be able to have a nice home like that. It's great. And they earned it and worked very hard, and it's all good. But I look at it and I just think, oh, not only do you have this big house, but you have to furnish the whole thing too. Like, I have to fill every room. If I owned a big house like that, I wouldn't even know what to do with it. Like I said, I'm not running track in my house. I don't have to have, like, I'm sure my cat would love it. You can just start at the end and throw a ball and they'd have a great time. But if it's over 1,000 square feet for me, I'm starting to think, well, what am I going to put in this thing? Like, I just need a laptop and a bed and maybe a little kitchen. I mean, that's why my bucket list dream goal is to kind of live on a boat at some point, just for a year, just to try that lifestyle. I could totally do it because the boat that I'm looking at getting is 1,300 square feet. That's huge. For me, that's massive. I mean, I could raise a family easily on a 1,300 square foot home or boat or whatever it is. So yeah, I agree with you. There's a high barrier and people are scared, but once you do it, you just realize I don't miss any of that stuff. I just don't miss any of it. I am not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to streamline my own life. And plus, the less stuff you have, the more you will focus on other things that are good in life. So not only will you not lose standard of living, you might actually surprise yourself and be much happier in life. This is interesting. What is a good long vol strategy for the eventual pop in the VIX? So I agree with you that there will eventually be a pop in the VIX. Hard to quantify what that means. But obviously at some point there's going to be serious trouble, and there will almost certainly also be an extended recession. There's no chance that we are going to go recession-free forever now. It's not like the Fed has fixed anything. The government is just spend, and we're in trouble now. We're in a lot of trouble. So there will be one. When there is, this is a very difficult trade to navigate, because anything long vol, whether you're talking about long calls on the VIX, vol ETPs, buying UVXY, buying VXX, buying VIX futures, buying long put options on the S&P, all of them are the same thing. They're all long vega insurance products that will decay. So if you're holding them, just waiting for that event, oh, it's going to spike eventually, the market's going to crash eventually, you're just going to burn a whole lot of capital. So what I do, and this is only for me, I'm not saying other people have to do it, but the only times I'm ever actually long volatility are when volatility metrics have already significantly decayed, and there's now a mathematical tailwind for those long vega positions. It's somewhat counterintuitive sometimes. People don't really get it until you experience it. But the best time to go long vol is when the markets have already crashed, and the worst time to go long vol is when the market is really stable and calm. Being a contrarian with long vol is super expensive. So there's no reason for it. You can just wait for the futures to go significantly backward. You can wait for the cash VIX term structure to invert, and then you can go ahead and layer into your long vol. And hopefully you were tactical a little bit and you exited some of your more risky long equity short vol positions, and it didn't cost you so much. But to try to just put on a trade now for the eventuality that there's a vol spike, it's just not anything I get into. It's not something that I don't think you're going to make. I don't think you're going to make it work. I don't want to discourage you. Give it a shot. Crunch your numbers. But what ends up happening is, of course, it will eventually pay off. But the payoff might not actually offset the money you bled waiting for that event to occur. So that's what often happens with insurance products, right? I've been buying insurance on my cars since I was 16 years old. In Canada, we drive when we're 16. 30 years of insurance premiums. Well, I haven't had to use hardly any of that, right? That's what ends up happening. It is nice that eventually, maybe if I have to, I'll get my car fixed, but that hardly pays for the 50 years of premiums that I paid along the way. That's what long vol is. One of those things. So be careful trying to be a contrarian if that's what you mean, like putting on a long VIX leap position or something for 2023 VIX leap calls or something. Be very careful of trades like that. They typically, unless you get the timing right, which is mostly luck, typically you'll lose more in the bleed than you'll make back on the spike. I wait for things to melt down and then I start going for the long vol. This will be revealed sort of in the next few weeks. What I typically do is do a once annual audit of everything. You'd like to say everything went well and you just kind of maintain. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. I didn't have a great year this year, but this is one of those things. If you're an investor and you want to be successful for 30 years, you have to be able to accurately analyze whether what went wrong was actually something you could fix, or was it just a function of an unadvantageous market? And you want to be super careful with that because it could be dangerously close to making excuses. You don't want to be that trader that's like, no, it's just the market just did all the wrong things and it was just bad luck and all that. Maybe, but it could also have been that you've got some blind spots and you want to analyze very effectively on which one of those it is. I haven't released my full changes for next year. We'll do that in the next few weeks in my daily emails. But the truth is there's going to be very little changes because I've been doing this for so many years now, like I said, almost 17. I know how to assess whether underperformance was strategy specific that I could change and sort of bounce back stronger next time, or whether it was just a market that I can't win in. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. I know people hate it, especially when you're paying somebody money for signals. I don't mean to sound like, oh, it's, whatever. But sometimes on a live stream, you just have to speak the truth. There's nothing wrong with having a flat year. If you're going to be investing for 40 years and you don't have at least 5 or 10 flat years, I'm going to call you a liar, quite frankly. I'm going to call you Bernie Madoff. I'm going to want to see an actual Deloitte audit if that's what you're going to tell me. Because flat years are going to happen, even for the best traders. I don't want to always drag out Warren Buffett like the old, cliche or whatnot. But do you know how many bad years that guy had? And he's got one of the best investing records in the world. Some of the best funds in the world were really negative this year. I mean, you'd be surprised, but if you make a list of all the really good performing hedge funds that typically have decent performance, there's not a lot of them, but there are some. I mean, these are very smart people. Some of them were negative this year. Some of them were flat this year. Some of them made 5%, but it wasn't the slam dunk. A lot of people look at the S&P 500 and say, oh, well, look at the S&P. It had a good year. Yeah, but bonds were ugly. Gold was ugly. There were plenty of asset classes that were negative. It's not like investors have 100% of their money in stocks. That's not a fair comparison. I'm not trying to beat the S&P. I'm trying to beat a diversified portfolio. So I think at the end when we add in the vol trend, I think it'll be, up, I don't know. I think the leverage might be up 5 or something like that. But it's close enough to flat. It wasn't a good year. I have to honestly assess, is that me? Or is that just that my strategies specifically aren't suitable for what we ended up getting, right? I can't make the market do what I want it to do. I'm a trend follower. So if I want to force the market to do something, please upward stability or downward extended recession. Pick one. I don't care. I'll make just as much money in both. But if you're going to ask me which market I want, I'll take either one of those. Don't care. Probably make more money in the extended recession, but I don't like when people get hurt. So let's go with the bull market that's just super stable, upward sloping. Okay, but we didn't get that this year, did we? We got 6 of the largest 30 volatility spikes since 1990, and then 3 days later they get faded, and we see 5 of the largest vol crushes 3 days later. Not anything I would have chosen, that's for sure. But you get what you get, and so you have to analyze. So the bottom line is, you might be surprised how few changes we're going to be making. You might think, oh, well, he's going to want to redirect. This is a different market. I have to honestly assess what happened, and you be very careful dancing that line between wasn't a good environment for me, better luck next year, versus let's just make excuses across the board. That's kind of a tightrope there, and it's a skill set to be able to identify the difference. I've largely done my audit, and you'd be surprised. We're probably not going to make that many changes. So, I've been trading for 16 years, 16 full years. I probably had 3 that looked like this year. So, it's not unheard of. Like I said, in a 30, 40-year career, if you're not going to have 10 that you'd like to forget, you're a liar. And that's not what I am. I'm accountable for everything, every time, transparently. I'm not happy, but I can honestly say it for my style of investing, it was just not any market that I would have selected, that's for sure. I love Canadians. I feel like they are Americans. Wonderful culture. Yeah, we are. I feel like that too. Sometimes people on live stream, not really on live streams, but mostly on YouTube comment section, sometimes on Twitter, I'll make a comment about politics and somebody will say, you're not even American. You have no right saying anything. And while suppose that's true. I'm not an actual voter, but come on. America's the best, the strongest, the most powerful, most influential country in the world. We're all Americans. Come on. I'm sure none of you know anything about Canadian politics. I don't know anything about Canadian politics, but I'm American. We're all American. Europeans are Americans. The European markets, you're American. We're all influenced by this global juggernaut of the United States. So, yeah, if you'll adopt me as your adopted brother, American brother, I'll take it. As far as culture goes, we Canadians typically feel like we are not no culture, but certainly young. We're not like Europe, which has just a long history of culture. We're not like Asia, which has thousands of years of culture. It's just not quite the same. I wouldn't use that word as far as applying to Canada. We're actually pretty independent, and there's quite big differences between all the different provinces and whatnot. I wouldn't say we have a culture, but yeah, we're definitely American. When I said the U.S. has more shopping malls than more storage lockers than McDonald's, we Canadians like our McDonald's as well. I don't eat fast food, but Canadians like their fast food. And this all seems so extreme. I've always thought my family had too much stuff, but the averages are crazy. If while I was reading those statistics, you thought that that's crazy, that's good. I think that's the response you'd probably want to get, because if they were crazy stats. So if you were listening to me rant about that and you thought, that's fine. That doesn't surprise me. Oh yeah. More shopping malls than schools. That makes sense. If you were that type of person, well, boy, you've got some minimizing to do. So I'm glad you were surprised by it. You were supposed to be surprised by it. It's insane what we're doing as a society. And like I said, don't be the government's good little boy. Don't work too hard and pay too much in taxes and spend the rest of your money on frivolous stuff. That's what they want. The man, that's what they want us to do. If you just unplug from the system, just Matrix style, just wake up and get out, there are rewards on the other side, both stress reducing and financial. Unplug. This is ridiculous. You will not ever see me posting pictures on Instagram about expensive things I own. I do own a couple of things that I like and that are expensive, but you're not going to see me. That's for me. That's for me privately. Okay. We've been going a while. But it is New Year's. I'll do a couple more. Since I did rant on for way too long. I just blab forever. I must have talked about minimalism for 40 minutes. Oh, this is awesome. Cool, I built 2 shipping containers and rent the main house. Please don't call it. Please don't call again. They're going to call again, aren't they? Yeah, I'm a tiny house person. I love those converted shipping containers where, it's just a box, but then the interior design is so efficient, and I just love that. I love when you got a table that's also a kitchenette, that's also a chair. I know what they're calling about. It's nothing. Maybe my microphone doesn't pick that up. I'm just going to keep going. If you hear the phone ringing, it's just because I get the room cleaned like every 2 to 3 days, and every day they call me and say, why aren't you getting your room cleaned? I really don't need to waste the resources. I'm a clean person. I can clean my own room. Okay. Eat out when special offers on, lunchtime 2 for 1, etc. Yeah, eating out is a big expense. I should have actually probably added that, how much we spend on outside food, but it's too much. I can say that for sure. It's definitely too much. We can shave money on all kinds of areas in our lives and not lose standard of living. Happy New Year to you too. Thanks for the support. All of you, thank you. Live streams were nerve-wracking this year, but it was a journey. I'm still nervous, but I'm getting there. So I would encourage everybody else to go on a similar journey. The rewards to being able to do this, even if you don't have an audience, send me the link. I'll open it up and watch your live stream while I'm doing my spreadsheets. Learning how to do this, you'll learn 7 or 8 other useful skills in the process of learning how to do video and YouTube. It's great. It really is. I can't recommend it enough. Is the profile in TWS accurate? I got burnt a bit over allocating, relying on the max loss in the profile window under the options builder tool. I don't ever use it. So I'm going back on memory, going back to like 2011. I remember I moved over my assets from TOS to Interactive Brokers, which is the trader workstation that you're talking about. 2011 rings a bell. So when I first started, I thought, well, I'm on a new platform. I'll just use IB stuff. And that was a short-lived experiment. So what I ended up doing was I just kept $35 in my TOS account for like 9 years. This account that you see, this isn't my portfolio. My portfolio is at Interactive Brokers. This is this is live money, of course. I had a hater a while back. Oh, he's talking about a test account. He's a paper trader. This is real money. I just put it in this account so that we could have something to look at and we could do live trades. And today's live stream where I'm able to actually show these VIX trades and open and close them. But my actual portfolio is at Interactive Brokers. But to answer the question, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Honestly, I think I gave up on Trader Workstation probably within 2 weeks. I thought the same thing. I thought where they're doing you can adjust, it's probably changed a ton in the last 10 years, but where you can adjust the profiles to see what risk, like a 99%, 99.5, 99.9. I agree with you. I found it not quite accurate. And I certainly, back then, I was really heavy into VIX options trading. That was 2011. I was right in the heart of my building a really good VIX option strategy. And it was wildly inaccurate with VIX-specific options, probably because it tracks the futures and not the underlying VIX index. And I think it just threw the platform for a loop. So literally in the last 10 years, the only time I'm ever at IB is when I'm executing the trades. Just end of day, I just log in for 5 minutes, do the trades, and leave. All my analysis is Thinkorswim. I'm looking at Thinkorswim hours a day. I'm looking at IB Trader Workstation 5 minutes. So when people ask me how to use it or, how to use the option builder, how to use the analysis tools, I don't know. I wouldn't bother. I think it's a terrible platform. IB is a great broker. Nice fees. I like the way they do their fees. Their statements are really good. It's great. I mean, they're a large broker. Their service is excellent. They allow what I used to use is I have an advisor account. So what I used to do back when I was living in Canada is I used to actually mirror client money in the advisor account, and then you can actually advise for people that way. I can't do that anymore because I'm not a resident of Canada. But IB's great. It's just a garbage platform. So unfortunately, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wish I could. I wish IB would just have their platform match up anywhere close to how good the rest of the broker actually is. But I don't think that's happening because it's been 10 years and every live stream, people still complain about it. So I don't even look at it, but I don't think I'm going to. The fact that you're complaining about it as well, they haven't fixed anything. Here's a clarification. I went off on a side tangent about auto trading and the legality of it. But what he actually meant was just setting up some type of predetermined rules and have the system execute them for you. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't do it. I don't have any programming ability whatsoever. So I'm kind of I'm an 80s kid. I don't program. I didn't dive into that. I'm too busy with the other stuff. So if I ever wanted to do that, I'd have to hire somebody as a programmer. I don't see anything particularly wrong with that, but I also don't see anything wrong with just trading the way that I trade, which is very systematic and rules-based, nearly 100% in most of the strategies. But there's nothing wrong with me just being there to do it, right? So if you think it's a time saver, that's great. If you are a person who has a very difficult time following your rules, then again, I would encourage you to figure out how to program it ahead of time, because breaking our own trading rules that never works out. It's funny how that happens. It's amazing how often you get punished when you break your own trading rules. So I would say in general, yes, you didn't mean auto trading like I'm going to do it for you. You meant you're going to do it for yourself using bots. I'd say go for it. I see nothing wrong with that. As long as there's no danger in getting bad fills or missing things, you thought your stop was going to flag and for some reason you programmed it wrong and it didn't, and you woke up the next day and UVXY was up 40%. And as long as you're fairly certain that there's not going to be any problems, that's fine if you're able to do it. No bread maker here, but I know some of you do. I know I'm talking to some of you. You've got a bread maker stuffed at the back of your cupboard. I used to have one too. I like bread. I eat tons of carbs. I'm a runner, so I eat tons of carbs. When I saw bread makers, I went crazy with my bread maker for 2 weeks, and then I probably didn't look at it for 10 years. What signals were you using in 2008, and what drawdown did you experience during the crisis? Many of the indicators you use now did not exist back then. That's true. Back in 2008, I was far less systematic. I probably wanted to be, I suppose, but like you said, a lot of the metrics that I use now were either just in their infancy, like the VIX futures launched in 2004, the cash VIX, some of those indexes, of course, they're not around, the VVIX, the Volley, these things, they don't really exist back then. So I was an option trader mostly back then. I was not a systematic ETF trader like several of our strategies now. I was options trading. And with options trading, it is a very good idea to be systematic and rules-based. So I would say I'm almost entirely sort of quant-based, if you will. Having said that, there's a lot of discretion as well. There's strike selection. There's, how far in advance. Like for iron condors, I like 80%-ish probability of success. I like 65 days to expiration. I like using 50% stops. These are all systematic rules. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that gets to choose when I put the trade on. If it's on the SPY, if it's on the TLT, whatever it is. So that's what I was doing back then. I was basically just half discretionary, half systematic, pure option derivative trader, doing the best I can. And my largest drawdowns actually came in 2010. Just based, different traders experience different things, right? That's one thing. Uh-oh. What's going on? Are you all still there? I don't think you're there. I think my camera died. If you can hear me, I'm unfortunately going to have to cut it off here. I was going to stick around for another 10 minutes, but sorry about that. That's crazy. My battery didn't last long enough. Okay, well, I'll wrap this up in the dark for you then, though. Thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year, everybody. Like I said, hopefully you either had a great year or you are going to make a few changes and have a much better one next year. I've got confidence in everybody, and you can always hang out on my streams. I try to give as much information as I can. I don't pull anything back. I'm not secretive. I'm not trying to do this to make money or get clients. I'm just trying to hang out with everybody and do the best I can to help. I know the path I'm on. I know where I'm going to be 30 years from now. Whether I do streams or not, it doesn't affect my portfolio. So I am just trying to give back a little bit to the community. I'm 17 years into this, so it's time that I could start giving back a little bit of my experience. So thank you so much for the support in 2021. And I think next year, it's going to be a year more focused on video and live streams. I'm going to write less, and I'm going to hopefully email less. I don't want to tell everybody don't email me, but please, if you can find answers elsewhere, please do that. I want to get my email inbox down to just like 2 hours a day instead of the 5 that it is now. And I want to really focus on video. So the YouTube channel is going to be I'm going to get back into it. I hit it pretty hard in 2017 to 2019, and then I kind of neglected it for a couple years. So stay tuned, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter if you like, at Volatility VIX, and go out, and I'm not going to tell you to get drunk, but, go have fun. Hopefully everybody has a great 2022. Minimalism 2022. Consider it.